Hey, what's it say on your shirt there?
Oh, it says Beyond.
Oh,
Beyond.
Welcome to Beyond, episode 486. My name is Max Scoville, and I'm joined by my good friends Andrew Goldfarb,
hello,
Zach Ryan,
present,
and Marty Sleva.
Greetings.
We have a very exciting show. I would say that this episode of this show is probably the culmination of our entire friendship. Because you just reviewed Persona 5.
Yeah.
But also Destiny 2 got announced, so let's talk about Destiny 2.
Our two favorites.
The moment we've all been waiting for.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's a thing coming out that is called Final Fantasy 15 Chapter 13 verse 2, because they always just want to wow us with the naming conventions over there at Square Enix.
At least there's no 0.8 at the end of it.
That's true.
And no fractions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Persona 5. This is like just
Whoa,
what's
time
up?
out.
What's
Wait
up?
a minute. You skipped the first note here.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Did you guys know that the Dutch call baseball honkball?
You don't get invited to the Google Docs anymore.
Did you know that?
You can look at the paper when it's printed out.
They call it honkball.
Did you write honkball?
Yeah, that's what they really call it. Anyway, about Persona 5.
Yes,
about this game that we've been waiting for 8 years.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, when was Persona 5 announced, first of all?
So it was formally actually announced in 2013, but they talked about it so long before that. I actually put up a timeline
I was gonna
today.
say 2009 or
There was
something?
never a Persona PS3 game.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
that's true, yeah.
So basically, Persona 4 was kind of the end cap of PS2. It was one of the latest games that came out on PS2 in 2008. And pretty much right around then, even in 2007, people were already kind of starting some rumors. And I put up a timeline. It's called Everything You Need to Know About Persona 5. That's kind of starting with the rumors leading all the way up. So the announcement came in 2013, but as far back as like 2008, 2009, there was already kind of rumblings. And then in 2010, they talked about the team transitioning over. In 2011, they confirmed the director and character designer and composer would return. It was kind of like a slow burn.
Yeah, I mean, the core team went to work on Catherine, though, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And in the meantime, we've also gotten, there was like Dancing All Night, and there was the fight. There's the fighting game.
Yeah.
Golden
There's also been a bunch of like offshoots too. Like there was the Persona Q.
Yep.
Which was, like,
3DS.
the mystery dungeons.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool having that core team because you mentioned Catherine like that, and now they're doing Project Re-Fantasy, like that kind of brain trust of Hoshino, the director, and Soejima, the character designer, and Meguro, the composer. Like those three dudes, like spearheading projects, like that's Persona 3, Persona 4, Catherine, Persona 5. Like it's that like marked step up in quality.
So I mean, just right off the bat, is Persona 5 up to the standard of those other games?
Oh, yeah. So we're recording this before the embargo's up, but I guess when you're listening to this, it's up. Yeah, I gave it a 9.7. Like this is, to me, it is not only the best Persona game, but I think it is the new gold standard for a Japanese RPG. I think it is the best turn-based RPG probably in decade, if not longer.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very exciting.
I mean, in terms of like traditional, I'm about 11 hours in, and I feel like in terms of a traditional JRPG, like turn-based battle system alone, just the things that you can do, the pacing of the battles, it's completely, it's weird because it's at the same time, it's so much a JRPG in that traditional sense, but it's so different and so forward thinking and so smart. Like to me, playing it feels very similar to the way that I felt the first time I played Final Fantasy 12. Like, oh, this is how Japanese RPGs are made going forward.
Yeah.
I'm probably close to 5 hours in. I started it and I felt really sort of guilty because I was like, I don't know if this is happening. And obviously that's just tip of the iceberg.
Sure.
It's also jumping into a turn-based RPG that has heavy tutorials after playing Zelda for weeks.
Yeah.
It's just the amount of hand-holding that goes into it, just by the nature of it being a tutorial.
No, totally.
But I finally kind of gotten past that point, and I think it just clicked, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. But in terms of it being like the logical progression of the turn-based JRPG, it's totally like, oh wow, yeah, this is that. I think I played Final Fantasy 15, and I was like, man, this reminds me. This is like if you went back in time and you showed this to your former self, there'd still be that kind of like, yeah, but why isn't it turn-based?
Right.
Yeah, it's like funny because like you mentioned Zelda, which obviously broke a lot of the conventions of Zelda, and I feel like Final Fantasy broke a lot of the conventions of Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
And I think you're seeing this kind of departure from traditional turn-based RPGs, which is fine. And like there's been some really great kind of action RPGs that were born from that. But it does feel really good to go back to kind of a perfected, like this is what like years and years of growth look like in returning to that kind of traditional like turn-based format.
Yeah, it's also it's stunning how just the resolution of it, like it looks like it's playing an anime.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it's not
totally.
It's not playing a video game that's made with polygons and shapes and all that just happens to look like an anime. It feels like it's a friggin' anime.
It's one of the most stylish games I've ever seen, which in every way, shape, and form, in music, in animation, in transitions, in menus.
Yeah.
But it's insane that the game also has the substance to back it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also really, really mature right off the bat.
Yeah.
Like I was not expecting as many cuss words. I was not expecting some of the
It does do a lot of swears.
themes that I'm already dealing with this early in the game, and I'm just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think it does better than its predecessor. And Persona 4 is one of my favorite games of all time. Like I always tell people that I always have two games that I'm sort of somewhere in that I go back to when I'm like, oh, what should I play? And it's Persona 4.
Twisted Metal Black.
Twisted Metal Black. It's
Candy Crush Saga.
Persona 4 and Wind Waker. But yeah, I think that what this game does better is it gets right into the thick of things from the outset. Whereas like Persona 4 had this sort of like slow burn leading up to like even the first time that you go into like an actual dungeon, as it were. You know, like this just throws you right into it and you get right. And I think one of the things that I really love about the battle system in particular is that it makes me realize that I was missing things from previous Persona games that I didn't even know that I really wanted to have. Like the ability to highlight enemies and figure out their weaknesses going into a battle initially. Like it's so smart. Like the way that you can just jump into a battle, hit one button, be like, right, these guys are weak against ice because I've already used that on another enemy type earlier. And like, it's brilliant.
Yeah, so they added this thing called Baton Pass, I think is really cool.
Yeah,
too,
it's awesome.
Where like on top of just being like the typical kind of okay, like I have fired their ice, like they're weak to that, blah blah blah. You can now also like so if you exploit a weakness, you get an extra action basically, and you can now give that turn to a party member. So basically, you can chain essentially where if you're really smart about selecting your party members and about like kind of the abilities you have, you can kind of think things through and chain together 4 or 5 of these and really just never even give the enemy a chance to attack, but they can do it back to you. So it's like really crazy because it makes it completely can change the, like you can be all the way up until the end of a battle, like they haven't even touched you yet, you're feeling great, and then they chain together a thing that just destroys you, and it's like it really changes the tide quickly, and I love that.
And what's insane about it is like I feel when you hear the term turn-based RPG, you automatically think slow. You know, like you automatically think like sort of methodical.
Yeah.
And this game, at the point that I'm at, like 10, 11 hours in, the battle system is so fast, and once you get it down and like you know what you're doing with it, it almost feels like you're playing a fighting game because you're throwing out these button combinations, switching characters, switching spells, flipping out your personas on the fly to bring in different spells that the enemies are weak against, and then chaining the one mores, and then you got these all-out attacks. And it's just like every so often while I'm playing it, I have to take a step back and be like, okay, what's going on here? What am I doing? This is nuts.
Conversely, it's also got rush mode. So as opposed to dealing with just kind of like throwaway enemies and that typical, like when I think
What's rush mode? Sorry.
Rush mode is it basically just it's like fast forward.
It's just all physical.
Bravely Default?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what I love about that is like when I think turn-based JRPG, like I grew up playing them here and there, and I always got frustrated by the kind of just the tedium of it.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people love that kind of grinding nature, and you know, that's how a lot of people listen to podcasts. But it just it always kind of was like, I don't know if I want to do this, you know, I want to fight another Pidgey, you know, that kind of thing.
Well, it does the Earthbound thing too, where if you are leveled up significantly enough, you'll just insta-kill an enemy when you encounter them, in at least in Mementos, and then you'll also they'll run away from you. Like you just don't have to worry about random encounters at that point.
But it seems like it already just has like a pretty good amount of respect for the player's time.
Yeah.
The fast forwarding options is through cutscenes and stuff. Like I didn't save right, and so I brought my save file to work, and I was like, I gotta go through all this crap again, and it was just pretty painless. So that was really nice. Let's back up for a second. This is my first time playing a Persona game. My fiance's played Golden excessively, and I heard a lot of bits about that, and I don't fully understand what it is. I'm good friends with you. You talk about it all the time, and sometimes it's like that. It's very odd. It's like having a small child who's discovered a new.
Who comes home from school and keeps telling you about this friend. You're like, I don't know who Dale is.
Yeah, it's like that Louis C.K. bit where he's like, oh, you're going to talk about Pokemon? All right, well, we're going to go in the bathroom. I'm going to show you all the different lotions and explain what the different things that they do, because you don't care about that. But no, like I'm kind of jumping into it being like, what are the pieces here? It's gorgeous. And my immediate sort of takeaway is it's like Harry Potter, Pokemon, The Matrix.
I mean, kind of, actually.
Sort of,
like,
yeah.
I see all of that, yeah. I mean, like, the thing is, like, we keep talking about all the battle stuff. Like, there's such a deep, like, intricate, dungeon-crawling, turn-based JRPG. But then the whole other half of the game is just exploring Tokyo, and you have like you form these relationships with people, either dating or just finding kind of NPCs that you become friends with. And there's like this really deep like social system, and you level up your personal attributes like your kindness and your guts and your courage or your
knowledge.
What is it? Your guts, your knowledge, your
Charisma? Charm.
Yeah,
Sorry.
there's like 5 stats that you have, and basically like it's sort of 2 games in one, and so it becomes this like the whole game takes place over the course of a year, and every day you have you're a high school student by day and you're kind of saving the world by night. But what that means is you go to class, and then you have time after school, and you have time in the evening, and you have these chunks of free time where you kind of have to manage your time very carefully. And like even that in and of itself is a really captivating, fun game, even if you were to ignore dungeons and all the other stuff that's going on.
So it's a video game about managing a work-life balance. That's a great thing for me to have as someone who should be playing video games.
It's so
for his
funny because
job.
like anytime that anybody's describing the other half of a Persona game to somebody, like, yeah, you can go to school, you can get a part-time job, you can go and play on the basketball
Don't
team.
get audited because that's bad.
It's like that sounds stupid and like something I would never be interested in, but it does it in such a way that it is extremely compelling. And the way that the two halves of the game tie into each other is so smart and so fun that you immediately get a sense of like a rewarding sense by doing things like going home and reading a book or going and joining the basketball team or
You
whatever.
talking about real life?
What?
Are you joining a basketball team?
I don't even know anymore.
I mean, Andrew, you described in your review as a time management simulator, which I think is super interesting, which is something like Stardew Valley.
So on that note, you platinum the game in 2 languages?
Sumimasen.
So how's that time management working out for you?
Yeah,
Not great.
I played this because it came out in September in Japan, so it's been out for. By the time it's out next week, it will have been 7 months or almost 7 months since it came out in Japan.
And you only platinumed it twice?
Yeah, right.
How many hours have you sunk into this time management simulator?
I'm at 5.5 playthroughs total.
What?
So it's like, I think I'm at like 220, 230 hours in total. That's over the course of 7 months.
Oh,
So
then
it's
that's fine.
It's been a little chunky. Like I also have a bunch of time into Zelda.
Okay.
I've also put 30
I also do heroin, guys. It's fine.
Good
Also
Lord.
sleep very little.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's I guess high praise. I'm glad that this game you've been waiting for years isn't a massive letdown.
Yeah, and I mean, so it's funny because for the review, I wanted to go back and mess with P4 a little bit just to kind of remind myself what it was like. And it is now very hard to go back.
Oh, no, is it really?
Yeah.
Hadn't even considered that.
Because like it is just everything here. It's kind of like if you ever played Persona 3 on PS2, like the full version of it, especially FES, where there's cutscenes and you're walking around, and then you try and go to Persona 3 Portable. It's the same game, but it's very condensed, and like there's no like free roaming. Everything is like essentially moving a dot around and fast traveling. This almost feels as dramatic as that, where it's like really hard to go back and have these kind of very like, it almost feels like having blinders on. Like when you're in dungeons in that game, especially, you're just working your way up and you're trying to get to the next floor, and everything's procedurally generated, and they might have kind of a different theme. Like in P4, there's a bathhouse as opposed to a castle and stuff like that. But in this game, like it's not like that. Like every dungeon is hand built. And so it feels like there's all these custom puzzles and totally different, completely different puzzle types that feel like I said in the review, like they feel like different games because they really, really do. And it is hard to explain like how much bigger and just more like I hate the stupid phrase next generation, but it does. It really does. You feel that generational leap where everything's just bigger and better.
2 generations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Seriously.
nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing. Like when I got my fiance Jenna the golden when it came out, and she burned through it. She loved it. And then I was like, "There's 3. You can check that out. It's a PSP game." And she's like, "Oh, this is unplayable right now. I cannot go back this far." And it was just like,
So I mean, both of those
that
games
happens, you know?
obviously had sort of updates with Fez, with the mobile version, and with Golden. Do you think this is? I mean, this game's
I feel
done,
like that era
right?
is, yeah. I mean, I maybe there's DLC, right? Like
Yeah.
I can see them doing something like adding, adding stuff later. Like those games added, like in Golden, for example, the character Marie, who's the best girl, is added only in Golden,
She
and
is
so
the best girl.
that's like a whole extra social link and everything separately. I could see them maybe doing something like that. Like each social link has like a Arcana attached to it. God, this is getting dirty. And the Aeon one is kind of the bonus one that you get in like
Flux?
Fez and in like Aeon Flux in the game. It's crazy.
if I had a stroke just then, I didn't notice.
But yeah, I can see them adding like a new confidant, like a new path to pursue or something like that later, maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe they'll just move on. Like,
that's still like the kind of the guts, the mechanics of a game. It is really hard to go back a generation or two. Going from like.
I mean, that's sort of the big conversation around Zelda right now as well, right?
Yeah.
It's like so many people are playing Breath of the Wild and saying, how do I go back to Zelda before this? And it's like,
and what's next? Is this just the engine of, is every Zelda game this now? Or like, what if they made it?
Is every is every Persona game Persona 5 henceforth?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think
No,
it's
it'd probably
all
be Persona 6, right? I mean, it'd be confusing if
no,
they
it's
just
going to
made
be
it
like
5
Persona
again.
5 the Platinum.
Persona 5 2.
I am
Dream drop
excited.
distance.
I'm excited that we got this good of a Persona game because it really might be the last one for a while. I mean, I would love to see them do
I mean, this
DLC.
team
Considering the
takes their-
development, I was gonna say, considering the development cycle on this game, if that's the case, then we're looking at not having Persona 6
We're looking
until
at a late PS5.
Well, not even to mention the fact that the three guys I mentioned, the director, character designer, and composer, are now on a game called Project Re-Fantasy, which is a brand new studio called Studio Zero within Atlas, making a fantasy RPG more Final Fantasy style. Like, that's probably going to take 6 years.
Can you join the basketball team in that too, though?
We'll see. I hope so.
Or maybe it'll be Honkball, the Dutch baseball.
God, I would kill to play some honkball in a Persona game.
The one activity.
Actually, you probably play a fair amount of honkball in Persona if you catch my drift. I'm winking.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're talking about.
I never learned how to wink correctly. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you were just kind of blinking asymmetrically. Anyway, so we do a thing on the show. We do rapid fire. That's when I go in the Facebook group. It's facebook.com/group/podcastbeyond or clouds.net/groups.wmv /_. I figured this time we do
/ and an underscore.
Brian's not here, and you are here, so we're going to do rapid fire Persona Edition Rush Mode. Joe Burns asked, is there more exploration available in P5 compared to the options available with the world map of P3 or P4G? That was a sentence. We kind of talked about that a second ago. And do social links have the same effects over the battle system as in Persona 4 Golden, or has it evolved in a further way?
Have you played enough to be able to answer this question?
I think I'm gonna have to stick another 250 hours in there. Yeah.
So for the first part, there's definitely more exploration in that there's just more. It's kind of still that, like, it's not like a true open world or anything. It's kind of that like open world, almost like hubs. So you have a lot like how you would go,
world.
like in Persona 4, you're kind of going from sort of the main stretch in town to the school hallways to like the waterfront, and there are these very small controlled areas. It's still sort of like that. Like you go to Shibuya, Shinjuku, Akihabara, kind of the hubs within Tokyo, and they're just much bigger and there's more.
It does
to
a
do.
good job of capturing like the feel of those.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's
districts.
one thing that I did want to touch on is like their rendition of Tokyo, the version of Tokyo in this game makes me want to go back to Tokyo so badly because it's so realistic. Like the first hour that I was playing that game, one of the first things it tasks you to do is to get on the subway and go to school. And walking into the subway station for the first time, my jaw literally, I had my mouth open because it's like I was reading the signs to follow the trains to go to school, and it felt like the
And you have
first
to
time I
find
was in a
the Ginza
Tokyo.
line
Yeah,
as opposed
it was
to the-
amazing. Like
Yeah.
it's so perfect. Like such a perfectly realized version of Tokyo.
And
think it would be
you unlock like this subway map is how you navigate, and it's like it gets so big and crazy. Like you really are.
Is it the actual subway map?
No,
That'd be an awesome thing for weeaboos to train themselves to
Just jump in that Yamanote line.
Yeah.
it's definitely more like stylized than that, but it is really cool seeing like going to Harajuku and going to like all these different districts that I'm just like, oh, this like feels authentic. Like it's so crazy. So I do think exploration is definitely bigger. It's but it's not. I also don't want to build it up as though it's like GTA. Like,
Well, you can do it one of two ways, right? Like you can go from the school to the train station, get on a train and go to another district and explore that district and jump a train and go there. Or you can open a menu and just quick travel to somewhere else. And it sort of depends on how much time you want to sink.
I also just noticed that you're wearing a Midnight Channel shirt.
did that on purpose.
We thought we were gonna wear the same shirt.
I've been waiting for Andrew and I to both wear this shirt on the same day for literally a
Positive
year.
we will.
Yeah.
And then real quick, I do want to address the social links have the same effect in the battle system. It is so much more robust. It is so cool. The way social links affect gameplay, they're called confidants now. They have a much more dramatic effect, and you kind of have to be really careful with who you decide to level up because it'll get you much more like advantages in battle. So like there's somebody who you level up and that gives you the ability to switch party members during battle.
Pro tip:
And
who should people level up? One pro tip.
as soon as it becomes available, I would recommend going to Konda, which is like the far right of your map. There's a church, and leveling up a girl named Hifumi Togo, who's the one I was just talking about. She'll help you switch party members in battle, which is huge. That's such a big advantage.
Hot scoop.
There's other characters that give you like depending on who they are, and this isn't spoilers at all, but like depending on what the nature of that NPC is and kind of what their job is or what they're good at or what they're doing, you'll get corresponding abilities. So just an example is that in palaces, which are the dungeons in this game, you have an alert level that's rising that you have to be kind of careful to keep down, because otherwise you'll just get kicked out of the dungeon and have to come back the next day. There's a character who keeps your alert level really low and eventually just bottoms it out, so you don't even have to worry about it.
Awesome.
There are so many like distinct advantages to leveling up certain social links, and it's really cool and really smart.
Candelarius, who sounds like a Persona. What's the few things that Andrew don't like about Persona 5? He was interrupted last time. That was never brought up, and it never got answered.
Sorry.
Well,
Yeah, what are the 0.3 things that are bad about it? Not how reviews work.
Hey, Zach, you want to talk about your shirt some more, or just? I was thinking we could probably talk about it. It's a pretty good
See,
shirt.
the Midnight Channel
For those of you
is
just tuning
from
in via
Persona 4
audio, it's
Golden.
actually- No, Garrett, sorry, go ahead.
I think there are a couple, so I mentioned this thing called mementos, which is when you're not in the palaces, which are the hand-built custom dungeons, kind of per boss, there's this thing called mementos, which is just all for side quests and side missions, and it's all just grinding, basically. It's they are procedurally generated. You're kind of going down. Persona 3's dungeon was called Tartarus, and you're working your way up and up and up. This is the opposite. You're working your way down, down, down in this thing called mementos. In there, you get side quests, and you have to go to a certain floor and find a dude and fight him or whatever. Those are generally the stories there aren't anything special. There are a couple that I thought were either really funny or like there were a few that I actually did find legitimately interesting and moving, but for the most part, those are really not that great. And then
It's just kind of padding.
I find there are minor complaints I have. I find it crazy that you still can't do same-sex dating in this game. There's a pretty legitimate amount of sexual tension between some of the male NPCs and your protagonist, to the point where there are even dialogue options. There's a point where a character says he's hot, and one of the options is oh, we'll turn the air conditioner, and one of them is why don't you take off your clothes? But it's laughed away.
Okay.
And you can't when you get a social link to 10 or to 9, you are given the option to be romantic or platonic with the women, but you just don't have that with the men. I thought that was just feels outdated to me. It feels like something that would be pretty easy for them to include.
Can you take your clothes off though, because it's hot, or?
You cannot, although you do get different outfits as the season.
Very Breath of the Wild.
works.
Also, it seems like the voice acting is a step back from. I mean, Golden's is at such a high caliber.
Yeah, it's funny because the watching trailers, I was actually really, really nervous about the dub ahead of time, and throughout it actually
Ryuji Sakamoto.
yeah, some of the pronunciations are weird. There are some little weird bits. I know you said you aren't super into the localization. I liked it a lot. But.
To me, it just, and this is not necessarily just a problem with Persona 5. It just I feel like the translation, and I know that I'm going to get blasted for saying this, but the localization in this game just feels very anime to me. It's just so over the top, and sometimes people just say things that it's out of context, just don't make. It just doesn't make sense why somebody would say that in terms of what's happening in that scene, And so there's little things that bother me, but mostly I think having played more of it, and I was talking to you about this, but I think having played more of it, I'm sort of on the same page with you, where it's I feel like the voice acting is good, but there wasn't somebody wasn't there saying, hey, that's a weird inflection you put on that. Maybe try that again in a different way or something like that.
Yeah, there are a couple of those weird moments where I was that's a weird way to say that. Or just I do agree there's occasional dialogue things where I'm oh, that was a weird choice. But for the most part, I don't know. I warmed up to the characters. I think even the ones that struck me as uninteresting at first, by the time I beat it, I was oh, you're great. I really, really did warm up.
It's called Stockholm Syndrome.
I think I texted you. I think I texted you the second day that I was playing it, and I was I hate Ryuji so much. He's so annoying. But now, after the first dungeon, this is my boy. He's totally a cool dude.
Yeah,
and I would hang out with him in real life. Yeah, probably so.
Exactly like when we met. There's a weird archetype system to Persona characters. I think Ryuji does feel sort of an evolution of Junpei and Yosuke. From Persona 3 and 4, you can kind of.
He's so much more over the top than someone like Yosuke.
Yeah.
He's always so angry and so calling everybody a bastard and it's take it easy, dude.
I think that's what it is. Everyone is. Just like everything else in the game, the characters themselves even are just bigger and more exaggerated. And I think that means that when you really like them, you really like them and it feels bigger. Whereas when things about them bother you, they're always there and they're bigger and they're kind of drawing more attention to themselves.
They put them on the full television now.
Yeah.
The small
This
screen.
is the first one available in
Yeah.
1080p.
Let's see. Anthony Abate, aka Abate that just won't quit. I've never played a Persona game, but I'm really curious about this one. Would Andrew recommend it for someone who likes JRPGs but isn't familiar with the series?
Yes. There's no, I mean, there are Easter eggs, but there's no like story elements or returning characters or anything you need to know. Like you're fine. You could jump right in. Don't need to play the series at all. And
So you're saying it's a Persona for Persona veterans and
newcomers
alike.
I had a line comparing it to that opening message from 15 in my review that Dan edited out. But
Yeah, it sounds like something Dan would cut.
yeah, I do think that they're taking that same approach. It's meant to be like people returning to it will recognize kind of everything being dialed up, and it brings back so many cool things that haven't been in Persona since like Persona 2, like ranged weapons, and it brings back demon negotiation and all that stuff. But yeah, like you can jump into it and be totally fine.
Cool. Stephen Cox asked, does Persona 5 have a timer calendar system? You mentioned this. It's just a year.
It's a little less than a year. Yeah, it's I mean, I won't get into where it ends, but yeah, it's like every Persona game. It's taking place roughly over the course of a year. You've arrived in a new town, new school, and you're meeting everybody. Yeah,
because
same idea.
He said, like, example, if I don't solve a case in 2 weeks, is it game over? And I was like, crap. If I got 2 weeks to do a thing, I'm like a week and a half in here. I'm like, I got really worried.
It'll always tell you in the top right if you're in. So
it'll say like 9 days till X happens, and then you know, okay, I still have 9 cycles before I need to do this.
You always have one less day than it says because you have to do a thing when you get to the end of a dungeon that takes an extra day. So if it says 10 days, do it within 9. But yeah, you'll always know. It keeps you very aware. Yeah, there is like that time management thing we were talking about. There is kind of that sense of you only have a certain number of days, so use your time wisely.
Okay. Benjamin Connell says, speaking of time wisely, how many hours playthrough to get the platinum?
So I'm
you have to play it twice, right?
Yeah, you there's 3 trophies that require New Game Plus. So you have to at least begin a second playthrough. You don't have to play it all the way through. You would have to, I guess the earliest you could get it in a second playthrough would be after the first dungeon, after you've unlocked Mementos. I think you could get the trophies you need there. So yeah, you have to do at least partway into a second playthrough.
So that's that's like 10 to 15 hours into the game. Well, I guess it's like
you could probably burn through it if it's your second time.
And you
Yeah,
just
that's
get
true,
rushing,
yeah.
and like you keep, especially if like for my New Game Plus, I just put it on safety difficulty because I was just grinding through to get the last things. So yeah, like I think you could get through it pretty quick, but I'm a weird judge of time because my first playthrough was in Japanese. I didn't understand anything that was happening, so it took me a long time, but I was also skipping cutscenes, so I was making up time there. And then my first playthrough in English, I already remembered a lot of the puzzle solutions. So you know, my time barometer is a little weird.
Would you say kind of ballpark 80 hours to beat the game?
80 to 100, yeah. Okay. I think it depends on, like, if you're playing in the harder difficulties, you really have to grind. It is a traditional JRPG in that sense as well. So you will have to put 10, 15 hours into just Mementos, into really finding time to fight enemies and level up.
Gotcha.
So
I was thinking about that this weekend. I cannot understand how you played through it in Japanese, because like there was one of the first things that you get asked to do is like you live inside this cafe, and the guy was like, hey, would you go outside and flip the cafe sign from open to close, please?
That took me like an hour.
I was like, there's no way that he would have known how to do that in Japanese.
And there were no guides yet or anything.
Yeah.
I remember watching you play. There were certain things where it's like, I don't know what's happening.
So it was so funny because like playing in English, something that takes 1 second, they're like, oh, go talk to the teacher in room 302 upstairs. Like, took me an hour of talking to every single person and trying every single door. But
what a maroon.
Beyond listener Marty Sleva asks, how's the banging?
Yeah, what can you tell us about that hot honk ball?
I will say,
You start over there.
they're definitely the characters that you can become intimate with are all over the place. There's like PG-13, like you know, nothing. It's not like Mass Effect where you're getting like the soft core like sex stuff.
It's not really banging. It's more like petting.
It's more like heavily suggested. Yeah,
Humping.
It's more like humping. It's more like hump ball.
Okay. All right. So yeah, Persona 5. I'm stoked it's finally out.
Well, it's out in a week.
Leave your house
out,
now.
yeah.
It's you.
No, I just mean as in we got to play it because we're privileged boys.
Yes. Or because we're crazy people who order things from Japan even though we can't read Japanese.
It's really it's so nice having it.
We did a bunch of Let's Plays in Japanese. Whatever happened to this?
Oh yeah, Atlas said no, sir.
Yeah.
Walk for it.
I can't recommend it enough. If you like RPGs, I mean, I know like Mass Effect's out, Zelda, Horizon, there's so much competing for your time. This is a really special game. And if you don't get to it now, I would highly recommend coming back to it because it's just so, it is hard to explain the breadth of it and how just massive and custom built, meticulous everything.
It's also so freaking cool. Like
it really is.
sounds like a stupid thing to say, but it literally is the coolest game I've ever played.
Yep.
Everybody like everyone is so stylish. Like the anime is so dope. Like the music is amazing. Like
It's
it's
this
just
wonderful kind of funky groove thing going on.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm also like, I'm not wild about some of like the kind of art direction aesthetics. Like some of the persona are kind of weird. That cat, I don't know, it looks like a beach ball.
I like that one boss that you fight that's just a dong. It's just a giant dong.
Very strange.
Yeah.
But I will say like the UI and like the graphic design side of things is just
So
Yeah,
slick.
I mean, the
yeah.
thing that comes
insane.
to mind is Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
In terms of something
totally.
that's just cool.
My favorite
and
thing is like when you perform an all-out attack. If you manage to knock everybody down in a battle, you can perform an all-out attack, and whoever knocked the last player or the last enemy down, it's like considered sort of like their win if you eliminate them in an all-out attack. And then each character gets an individual like title card when the battle is over, and they're
so
all
good.
so awesome and so different. Like
rad.
Ryuji's is like graffiti street art, and then Ann's is like this like bubblegum kind of. It's awesome. It's so cool.
The variety of characters is so cool. Like I love the party members so much by the time you flesh out the full party. I'm so excited to talk spoilers and have people playing because it's just like it's such a good special game. I love it.
Yeah, well, we talked at length about it because it's a big PS4 title. So
Don't miss it. Yeah, don't sleep on this one.
Speaking of JRPGs, Final Fantasy 15 Chapter 13 Verse 2 is the patch that's fixing pretty much people's biggest complaint with the game.
Chapter 13.
Yeah, Chapter 13 is like this part where it's, I don't know if you haven't played it, it just kind of jerks the wheel. It feels like it kind of a step backwards to like 13.
So so I'm gonna make a confession here. I played Final Fantasy 15 pretty religiously until everybody started talking about how terrible Chapter 13 was
Same.
and how it was eventually going to get patched. And so I just pumped the brakes. Like I haven't.
Exactly.
I put about 8 to 10 hours in, and then I said, okay, I'm going to stop and wait until this patch is here, and then I can just go through the game and not have to worry about this section, which clearly everyone hates.
Do we know if this works mid playthrough? Like,
Yeah,
I think
assume
so.
it.
Yeah, you can update it mid playthrough. But yeah, I mean, I feel the same way where I pump the brakes and I'm gonna wait. Like I saw the Gladiolus trailer, which you're fighting Gilgamesh. There was a little teaser for the Prompto one, which looks weird and mature, and he has
Also,
a gun and
yeah,
he's
you
gonna
can
kill someone in cold blood.
Go up top on those big spire things with the
Yeah.
chocobos now.
Yeah.
Also, I love that they showed like a screenshot a while back where the Regalia has monster truck tires, so you can just drive around off road.
Of course, you love that.
And like, this is going to be one of those games that I'm going to wish that I hadn't touched it in like a year. Like
You burned through it like over Christmas break, right?
Oh, so good. Yeah, but like, I mean, it's totally not without its faults. But I would say like the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. Like the amount of just weird little just attention to details in that game is so great, and the fact that they're just patching in just more weird stuff consistently.
See, that's the thing. That's the thing that I love. I think people were so bummed that it was such a long wait for this game to come out, and now I feel like they're paying it back so hard because they're doing all this extra stuff that we didn't know was coming. And
There's a VR mode coming.
And each character gets their own little side story, and they're fixing the things that people didn't like. And like, I think it's so
I get
great.
the feeling that like come November, there's gonna be a Game of the Year edition. That's just gonna be awesome. Like the definitive way to play this game.
If you're one of those people who's like on the fence about it, but you're still curious, like I'd say hang out for that, and then you've got like an amazing game that'll just like carry you through.
Yeah, and it's like
Also, PS4 Pro support too. So
I think like the fact that they're continuing to support it is a good sign that you should jump on board. Also, like these characters and the fact that they're doing these side stories, like they love these characters, and I just
So
like
good.
the 4 people
Who the hell
in that
doesn't love
party.
Prompto?
I mean,
the
seriously,
best.
and the 4 people in that party, like I wouldn't be surprised if I don't know that we'll get like a proper 15-2 or anything necessarily, but I wouldn't be surprised if 15 is the foundation for more of what they do.
I mean, and Square is willing to do that with Lightning. Like,
Yeah.
Lightning was a pillar for them. A lightning pillar.
I can't imagine
lightning rod.
yeah.
I can't imagine
It's lightning pillar. That old idiom.
I can't imagine them not continuing to revisit that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, that's cool.
So we got a weird
You
leak
ran out of
this-
steam there, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
The lightning pillar thing really knocked me off the boat.
We got a weird thing this week. We've been talking about this for a while, but apparently the next Call of Duty that comes out, spoilers this year, because it's a Call of Duty game, is going to be going back to World War II. And then these posters popped up that just say Call of Duty WW2.
So
What's the story?
Here's the thing. We have some sources that have been talking to us about historical Call of Duty for a while. And, during earnings calls, Activision's been pretty clear that, so this year's Sledgehammer, they're the dev, it's kind of their
Advanced
turn.
Warfare. Yeah.
And they, Activision's been talking about it, taking the series back to its roots, and they've been kind of not really hiding the fact that it's clearly not going to be, Advanced Warfare 2 or something. Like they're changing it up. We had heard historical setting we had kind of a dubious source, which is why we never ran this, that World War II was one of many historical settings. I don't know if that means for this game or sort of the next few Call of Duty games are revisiting older historical settings. But this jives with what we've heard, that World War II is kind of coming back in a big way.
Yeah.
And I think Battlefield 1 proved that you don't need to have modern settings.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is I could totally still see the multiple settings thing working out in this game, because the way that stuff looks is it's Call of Duty World War II. I could see the exact same promotional material of Call of Duty Vietnam.
Exactly.
Like I could totally see this entire promotional run being Call of Duty Korean War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm very excited for this either way. I think Sledgehammer is a really good team, and I feel like Advanced Warfare had really cool parts. I actually like that campaign a lot. Probably more like Infinite Warfare in some ways. But I don't think that it felt like they were like in a box, sort of. It didn't like really bring anything brand new to the table.
And it's we always talk about that pendulum, like there's future fatigue right now.
Yeah,
Between
totally.
what Call of Duty's done, between Titanfall, like it's just like, all right, I've had enough of these beeps and boops. Like you sort of want to go back. It's been an entire generation since they've gone back and done this.
It's also so different now. Like the World War II era days of Call of Duty was Infinity Ward, and then Treyarch came on board with World at War. But the Call of Duty machine has changed so much since then, and Treyarch is a very different developer in a post Black Ops world than they were, and Infinity Ward is a very different team, because now so many people went to Respawn.
Not to like outside of the skill, like the systems that they were developing those games for, like the technology has come so far that they can create entirely different. World
You saw how
like
gorgeous
Battlefield 1
was. Exactly.
No, I mean, it'll be really cool to see, like, also those games are always just incredibly polished, and it'll be neat to be like, oh, you haven't made a World War II game in a minute.
And
it's been a while.
Sledgehammer hasn't at all.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, it's a really cool, like I'm really excited to see what the modern era will inform for like a really grounded World War II story.
And again, like I saw a lot of comments being like, oh, you're just doing this because Battlefield 1 was a success. This game is a 3-year dev cycle.
Yeah.
I promise you these were developed in vacuums.
I think it was on this show when we were talking about
just trying
that,
to,
right?
Be like, no, this wasn't our response.
Well, and we had I found an old interview from E3 2015 where we talked to Eric Hirschberg about if they would want to revisit a historical setting. And at the time he was like very coy, and like looking back, it's like, oh, they totally already knew.
Yeah, it was already, the wheels were moving. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's steering a gigantic ship. It's very difficult.
And
but,
I think it's also super exciting when we look at what the next story is, what the two Activision pillars of this fall are going to be between this and what Destiny 2 is shaping up to be.
Yeah, so we got the big reveal of Destiny
what you did
2's
there.
Fancy logo. It has a 2 in it.
Yeah.
It's a big number 2.
Yeah.
And then we got Last Call teaser.
Yeah, we got a teaser just like a couple hours ago, which is like a minute 15 seconds of Nathan Fillion's character at a bar telling a story.
So
as like the world's collapsing around it, basically.
And I think I played a pretty significant amount of Destiny in the initial year to 18 months, right?
Was it Vanilla Destiny or was it
Vanilla Destiny and then
Neapolitans?
the first expansion up through like the Taken King. So I guess that was like Rise of Iron and Taken King.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But Cade 6 is one of the best parts of Destiny, and I think like leading the announcement of Destiny 2 with Nathan Fillion as Cade 6 in this sort of like fun teaser trailer is such a dynamic shift in tone from the original Destiny that like for a game that I haven't really cared about in 6 to 8 months, I was really stoked to watch this. Like it immediately caught my attention and brought me back on board. Like I'm really interested to see
and
what
like the initial Destiny, reveal and then hype machine up to launch was sort of a wet blanket of a sci-fi story. They leaned hard into the Peter Dinklage character, which obviously ended up getting patched out just because I was like, what is this? And I feel like the game has changed so much over the last, whatever year and a half it's been out, 2 years. And
you like crank that Soldier Boy?
Yeah,
like
crank that Soldier Boy.
by the time this game comes out, it'll have almost been 3 years, right?
Yeah. And so
Also, it was developed for last gen too.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy to think about. And
is the PS3 version of Destiny still?
No. So the last expansion I think was the first expansion that they said it was not compatible with the last generation.
Cut that.
Yeah. Also, that first expansion was Vault of Glass.
So. It's crazy because I played Vanilla Destiny for 10 hours and then stopped, and I really I missed out on so much of when the game became really good.
Yeah.
That,
it became an entirely different game, especially with Taken King.
It seems like it. Yeah, and I want it. It's just like it's the problem we always have where there's so many games, and this one is one that you really have to find the time to pour into. Destiny 2, I hope is it. Like I would love to jump in at that point, and I hope it's accessible. They have talked a little bit about characters transferring over kind of like the things that will carry over. I hope you can still jump in and not feel like you're lagging
They
behind.
talked the things are pretty much purely aesthetic.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to be like someone like Destin or Fran who's put 500 hours into the game is going to have an advantage over you, other than the fact that they're going to have an advantage over you because
they're better at
insane.
shooting Destiny.
The stuff that I'm excited about is that they've had a chance to really just flesh this out. They're not kind of like launching this massive effort on multiple platforms that are still kind of untested. This is too. It's always good when a game has a sequel that is, trying to prove itself. It's an iterative medium.
Uncharted, Assassin's Creed. Watch
Well, I was
Dogs.
going to say,
Yeah.
especially a sequel,
yeah.
especially a sequel
Halo,
in the hands
yeah.
of Bungie. Yeah,
Yep,
I was
yep,
going to
yep.
say,
Yeah.
look at Halo 2 versus the original Halo.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
take the feedback that you got on the original Destiny and the learnings that you've made in all those expansions, apply that to a sequel, and it, ostensibly could be a hell of a game. Like,
Yeah.
right out of the gate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. The other little tidbits that came out from this teaser are that the full reveal is coming on Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We're gonna have a pre and post show, so tune in around 9:45.
Yeah,
we'll have much
that's when
smarter
people.
Destiny kids.
Yeah, I was
than
going to say
us.
that's when people that actually know what they're talking about when it comes
Yeah.
to Destiny
Yeah.
will talk about it.
Like
Yeah.
I feel bummed out because like I really I was excited about Destiny going in, and I jumped on it, at launch with the whole like open alpha and beta and all that stuff, and then I was just like, oh, is that all that there is here? And then I got distracted by other games, and then it developed this huge like fan base and this wonderful community, and I've got tons of friends who play it like religiously. And I'm just feel kind of like, oh man, like I felt the same way with Halo. Like I kind of missed out on that early on, and I was like, by the time it took off, I was like, I don't know and then maybe Destiny 2 will be a better jumping on point.
Yeah.
But
then they've also announced that this is probably the first confirmed game for the Sony show at E3 because they've announced that once again the DLC is coming first to PS4 up and through fall of 2018. So I'd bet quite a bit of money that this is on stage at E3.
I put a relevant George W. Bush quote here, which is, "Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me, you can't get fooled again." So Destiny 2, looking forward to it. I for one am pumped. Anyway. Yeah. No, I don't know. I have no idea.
Just took a hard left there.
Yeah.
No, he's a right. He was a president. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm just curious to see what it is, if anything.
No, for sure.
Yeah. We got our first look at the photos of Alicia Vikander in the Tomb Raider movie.
The first official one.
The first official ones. Yeah. Not on like a weird zip line that just looks like somebody cosplaying it at a theme park.
She looks
crazy.
awesome. She looks exactly like she does in the game.
It's like exact, like even like the like bandages on her leg, and like the little like
pickaxe
things
thing,
she's carrying. Yeah.
Which is
It's like a dead ringer for the
Yeah.
reboot. Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
It's kind of nuts though, because I feel like in terms of like video game movies, there's always like some little bit of reinterpretation,
Sure.
but
So GQ did an interview with the director that actually, personally, and I don't know how much of the minority I'm in for this, but like I really like the Tomb Raider reboot, but I hated the supernatural stuff towards the end. I just hate the ending so much, and it
Yeah, me
ruined
too.
the game for me. And so I liked Rise of the Tomb Raider a lot better because it was so much more grounded. In an interview with the director that GQ did yesterday, he talked about how they're kind of taking some elements from Rise as well. So my total speculation, what I would at least like to see would be take the first 75% of the reboot, get up to that point right before the supernatural cutoff happens, and then just use the end of that game to segue into a sequel and do
cool.
Rise.
Yeah.
I think it'd be awesome if there's a stinger after the credits where there's all this bonus stuff unlocked, and it's the first scene of the movie, but Laura runs by with a giant head, and she's got like a rainbow trail, and she's like throwing chickens at
Or
people,
just
and
like
they're
all the
exploding.
scenes of her being like impaled in the death. Yeah.
Just Benny Hill theme.
32-bit
And
Alicia Vikander.
Yeah, and the cast is like, it's like Walton Goggins, McNulty from The Wire, like
So what was that first name?
Walton Goggins.
From Justified and Shield.
He's an
and
amazing
all that
actor.
stuff. He's really, really good. Yeah.
I'm sure I'd know.
He's
his
a
face if I
Sergio
saw him.
Bergerac.
He's one of the titular vice principals in HBO's Vice Principals.
Yeah, he is.
There's a bunch of games coming out this week.
Sergio.
One of them, what is it? There's the new MLB one where you can
The show.
You can have your photograph taken by the camera, and then they make you get the scary hair face on the television. What could
that
go wrong? Then of course there is
Terrifying nightmare honkball boys.
Yeah. There's also old time hockey, I think, which I've had my eye on for a while. It looks like NHL like 94, like an old like an
old-time
goofy
hockey game.
Yeah, but it's kind of got this like grungy sound of 70s aesthetic, and there's an emphasis on beating the crap out of people. So it's sort of like the Warriors in that sense. Big fan of that concept.
Yeah.
Then there's Rain World, which I think we touched on like probably repeatedly on and off. IGN
Slugcat's
has
a very hard
review
video
of-
game. Yeah. Scrubbles, Joe Scrubbles from a UK team reviewed it. He gave it a
Scrubbles the
6
cat.
something. Scrubbles the cat.
Yeah, the reviews are kind of like in that like 6 to 8 range. I think they're kind of things people seem to like versus not like back and forth.
Yeah.
I want to play it. I love aesthetically. I love the way that game looks.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, I've seen it being described as like a Metroidvania. Yeah. Is that?
Yeah, starting with Slugcat.
Yeah.
Like it,
Yeah, this was a big week too. The last Dark Souls DLC came out. Chloe gave it an 8.
Yeah, and you spoiled it last episode.
But
Everyone says I spoiled it. I played the first 15 minutes and talked about the first 15 minutes, which were what everyone has seen so far. So I don't think I was capable of spoiling it.
You ruined it.
And then also Snake Pass is out. Snake Pass is a very good video game that you
Yeah.
guys should play.
Why don't you
from
spoil that
Sumo
too?
Digital. It is about a snake who must compete in obstacle courses.
Great.
Snake passes.
Yeah.
Thanks to you.
Yeah, I actually played I played Snake Pass with you at the Switch event. Marty and I played Snake Pass many times together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a super cool
Guys, talking
physics-based.
I already
about
game.
made that joke yesterday.
We're talking about doing sex. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, honk ball.
Yeah, just playing the old honk ball.
Yeah, but it's really good. It's the most lifelike snake movement
I'm sorry
in
to
any video
Snake
game ever.
Pass as we're trying to tell people how great their game is, but
Yeah.
we mostly talk about me and Marty doing smooches on each other.
Yeah, we can call them
weird.
snake patches, or we can call them sumo digitals.
Amen.
But no, I want to touch on this. We talked about how like seeing a Call of Duty game that does World War II again after all these years is like, oh, that could be interesting. I think that with the way games and technology work, an idea that seems entirely played out can get revisited. Like, remember the bow and arrow in Turok Dinosaur Hunter, which sucked. It's whatever. And then there was that year in like 2012 when everybody just figured out how to make bow and arrow mechanics work.
Yeah, now we have Horizon.
Like Snake Pass is, you think about like, oh, what's the last good game
Zelda,
you played
yeah.
that featured an actual snake, not like a,
Metal Gear Solid 5,
yeah.
The Phantom Pain.
Yeah. Okay. But I mean,
Several
like,
snakes
there's
there.
like the snake game on your phone, or there's that like, what is it? Like the Snakeos, the Wormios game, that game that kids play in the browsers or whatever.
Brazzers?
I don't know what it's called. It's called
The
like
Brazzers.
So it's a I don't know. Pear's kids play it. It's like a wormy game. It's you spin around. Anyway,
What's wrong with Nobi Nobi Boy?
it's okay. So there's another example, but like any game that where it's like mechanically kind of simple, and then somebody comes along and completely just flips the table over. Like it's an incredibly realistic snake mechanic.
Right.
Well, even just platformers in general, I think are, starting with Ratchet last year and now into Ukulele coming soon and all this stuff. Like there's a resurgence of that genre as a whole, even aside from mechanics. And
That aesthetic as well, right?
and-
Like Snake Pass has this like gorgeous sort of Banjo-Kazooie looking aesthetic.
yeah.
that,
And
like
like
3D mascot.
and jokes aside, like this game, I never really thought about what it'd be like to control a snake in a video game until I played this, and I'm like, oh, this is different than anything I've ever played before.
Thank you.
But it
Yes.
totally hits, and it relies so heavily on movement in the same way that something like Bound or something like Piano 3, that like the game, or Abzu, where like the game is about the movement and the movement is the game.
Well, it
Yeah, I
sounds so
think at a
stupid.
glance, this looks like Banjo-Kazooie
Sure.
or ukulele or whatever, but it's like this is under the hood. This is something entirely new that no one's ever done before.
Well, it's such a physics-based thing, right? And it sounds so stupid, but like I was having a really hard time playing when I first picked up the sticks and was like, trying to move this snake around. And the guy giving me the demo was like, you got to think like a snake. And at first I was like kind of thinking, like, well, that's pretty flippant, obviously. But then as soon as I was like, oh, right, it's a snake. It moves like a snake. That's how I got to control it.
Yeah.
And it clicked. It's so much fun. And like Brian was texting us yesterday and was talking about how he's been playing it and saying that he's trying to 100% every level. And it's actually super challenging to find those last few hidden secrets and stuff like that. And I think that's awesome. Like we don't have a ton of games like that anymore.
Yeah, man, this first couple months has been really good for video games.
Holy cow.
What a
Jesus.
year. And there's still like a bunch of crap that's probably coming out this fall that they haven't even told us about yet.
Yeah.
Call of
So-
Duty Dub Dub 2.
Yeah, Dub Dub 2.
Can we have World War II? Can we call it Dub Dub 2?
Oh boy. I feel like that's
Probably
very
gonna-
disrespectful.
I know about some parades that might be very upset with you. Veterans parades.
Oh yeah.
Okay? Or just people with common sense parades.
What?
Yeah,
I
get
shortened
over yourself,
W to
Marty.
Dub Dub.
Yeah, don't do that.
Nope.
Don't do that.
Terrible.
Knock it off.
You know what? I think it's
Bad.
Why don't you go
You did
spoil sport
bad.
DLC?
You did bad and you
anyway,
should feel bad.
This is Podcast Beyond. I don't think we're supposed to call it a podcast anymore because we have this beautiful studio we do the video version in. Have you been watching it? Because we're on youtube.com/IGNBeyond. You should be subscribed to us over there. And again, check out our Facebook group. It's facebook.com/groups/podcastbeyond. There's that name again. You can find us all on Twitter. I'm Max Scald.
Max Skull.
Max Scalding.
And that was me being at the end of able to speak words.
Yeah.
I like how you nailed everything business-wise
was
and then fumbled
amazing.
over yourself. Where can we find you on Twitter?
You can find me on Twitter, Max Scoville. Andrew is Garfep. Zach is Zacharias D.
That's
and
right.
Marty is McBiggity with 2 G's and 2 T's, otherwise spelled like a really, really awful McDonald's food. Yeah, so
I think it's
that's
a delicious McDonald's.
the show. Beyond.
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 Yes.
The end.
Whoa, that was the end?
Yep.